Hello everyone, my dear friends. It's me again, Igor Pogodin. And today we're going to talk about happiness. Are you familiar with a situation where you feel happy today, but in 2 days, a week, or even just 5 minutes later, you feel unhappy? When you strive for happiness, you finally achieve it, but then you feel an overwhelming fear inside that this happiness might simply disappear, and you'll find yourself plunged back into sadness. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? And it's inevitable. Our life is arranged in such a way that everything is constantly changing, everything changes, and everything is transient. And in a sense, this is exactly what becomes the source of human suffering. But that's not the whole truth. In reality, the source of human suffering is not the transience of the world. It's not that sometimes we feel joy and sometimes sadness, sometimes love, sometimes hatred, sometimes fear, sometimes anger, disgust, delight, or inspiration. Everything changes. That's nothing new to us. The problem is that we don't agree with it. And the concept of happiness that we have constructed is based on this disagreement. There are two understandings of happiness as I see it that I would like to draw your attention to now. Most people who want to be happy always appeal to certain conditions, right? So tell me, if this sounds familiar to you, write in the comments what your personal conditions for happiness are. Remember that last hour, one of the last scenes from The Golden Calf, when Ostap returns after his victory? Though with sadness inside, he comes back to his fellow travelers, the ones he journeyed with for most of the way. And he meets Shura Balaganov. He asks, Shura, how much do you need to be completely happy? And Shura replies, how much do I need to be completely happy? A very small amount. He says, no, you didn't understand me, Shura. How much do you need to be completely happy so that everything would be just fine for you? And Shura names a large sum of money, I don't remember exactly, 5,000 rubles, something like that. There is always a condition. We agree to be happy if we constantly experience joy, delight, inspiration, love, pleasant sensations in the body, a feeling of health. But life isn't like that. Our bodies get sick. Sometimes we feel sadness, sometimes anger. Sometimes we encounter disgust, pain, when we are betrayed or abandoned. But is that a reason to be unhappy? Perhaps many of you will say, yes, of course, that's a reason to be unhappy. But no. In reality, the reason for unhappiness is your refusal to accept what is happening. When experiencing fear or pain, you can be just as alive, or maybe even more alive, than when you feel joy. Are you familiar with this feeling? Please write about it in the comments. Do you know the feeling when you were in pain, but you felt completely alive? I remember once I was running one of my very first programs on psychotherapy of experiences. If you're interested, I'll leave a link in the description of this video. This is the flagship of our academy, my own signature program, where I help people master their nature of presence and turn it into great psychotherapeutic skills. And so when I started talking to one of the participants in this group about what had changed in her life, she said something like the following. She said, Igor, I have never felt pain like I do now. And the whole group perked up their ears. After all, we do so much work, psychotherapy. She had gone through her own personal psychotherapy with a good therapist, and it was quite a long process. That's it. So the pain still remained. And she, without changing the tone of her voice, said, but I have never been as happy as I am today. By the way, I use her quote as the title for my book, A Collection of Cases. It's available on our website if you want to read about a case. There are about 50 psychotherapy cases that I handled many years ago. That's what I called it. I've never been in as much pain as I am right now. I've never been as happy as I am today. Because that's the truth. Because we will always be healthy and we will always get sick. We were young and we will inevitably grow old. If we experience joy, we will inevitably experience sorrow. Life is always dynamic. Life will always involve these ups and downs. And if you don't agree with this, you will suffer. And some happiness ideologists even insist that happiness must be continuous, and that you should always find something good in everything. But in reality, that's not the case. Happiness is the ability to be alive in pain. Happiness is the ability to be alive in shame. And do you know how much life there is in shame? Oh, trust someone who spent most of their life fighting shame. And only at some point, when I stopped fighting shame, did I discover that I had so much life, so many desires, so much love. There is so much love in pain. So much love. And if you don't accept this, you will always live in fear. Today you fell in love, you're soaring on the wings of love and happiness. But inside you, fear begins to take root. What if it won't always be like this? What if my loved one leaves me? What if they find someone better? And fear starts to appear in you. Along with fear, fear begins to drain energy from your love. Jealousy starts to appear. Irritability starts to appear. Conditions that weren't even close to existing before just recently start to form and accumulate like a snowball. You start to have more and more conditions for this love. But originally, love has no conditions. If your love has conditions, then it's anything but love. That's exactly why when people talk about so-called conditional love, it's truly absurd. Love cannot be, as you might remember from Warland, it cannot be like, fish of second freshness. In the same way, love cannot be conditional. Do you understand? That's why the phrase unconditional love is also meaningless. There is only love. So everything that happens in your life is all your life. And the best thing you can do is learn to be alive in what is happening right now. Even if you are feeling sad, accept this sadness. Right now, my client and I are talking a lot about the anxiety he has, the fears that constantly attack him. What if anxiety, I tell him just to be clear, is like a kind of basic configuration, a sort of default setting really. Anxiety perhaps will always be there. The question is not about that, but you do have a choice. You don't have a choice about whether you feel anxiety or not. Those who are familiar with anxiety, with panic attacks, those who have suffered for years from obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety disorder, panic disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, or simply have occasional bouts of anxiety that don't reach the level of panic attacks, know that you don't control this, right? Isn't that right? But the choice you always truly have is a choice to suffer or not to suffer. I'll try to explain what I mean. You can't choose which feeling to experience. We naively think that feelings are our own, that they are what we experience, and that they belong to us. But then, apparently, you should be able to want and feel joy instead of pain. Go ahead, try it and see if it works. At one time, William Jameson, of the forefathers of psychotherapy, or rather psychology, he had this beautiful idea. He said that, in fact, our bodily reactions, it's a factor connected to emotional expression. If the captain of a ship, he says, were to go out on the deck, something he sometimes does while feeling very strong fear, and made his body behave as if he were not afraid, he would stop being afraid. You can do such manipulations with your body, but even in the case of fear, it won't end well. With post-traumatic stress disorder, for example, if a person is in a combat zone, now try replacing pain with joy. Or try replacing hatred with tenderness. Will it work? No, because they are not yours. And can you control your thoughts? Someone once wrote to me in the comments under one of my videos, Well, I can think whatever I want. Well, think about it. You won't succeed. You can only think what comes to mind. The character, well, this brazen, petty, somewhat rude character that we sometimes call the personality or ego comes in later, a thought appears and a feeling appears. And then, a fraction of a second later, he comes in and says, oh, that was me. You see what I mean, right? And then he starts to suffer. It's this character who suffers, but that's not really you. You don't have to suffer. So, my whole life, I'm 51 years old. And for 31 of those years, I've been practicing psychotherapy. That's most of my life. I've discovered that my main task is to help people be alive in whatever is happening. When they're in pain, I help them stay alive in it. This is the essence of experiential psychotherapy and of Gestalt therapy as well. When they feel sadness, I help them stay alive. I help them not to die in their sadness, but to remain alive. And then the pain becomes radiant. There is so much life in sadness. And the shame, which used to press down like a stone slab, stops weighing on them, and it becomes filled with vitality and desire, even though the shame itself remains. And these feelings help us. Pain helps us notice that we have lost something valuable or that our boundaries have been violated. Shame helps us notice our desires that arise in contact with other people and helps us discover needs related to close relationships. Sadness and grief tell us that we are losing something right now. We are also letting go of something valuable and important to us right now, unclenching our hands, waving goodbye waving after the person who is leaving and so on. Anger tells us that our boundaries are being violated right now and we need to defend them. Feelings serve a pragmatic function. Don't treat them like some precious relic. That's it. They have nothing else. The choice we have is not to be a reaction. In other words, we have the choice not to suffer. But we do not have the choice not to experience a particular feeling. One of the principles of a happy life that I once wrote about in my books goes like this. Do not object. Total acceptance of what your life is. Even if you don't like your life right now, that's just a mental construct. A certain spasm is created within you based on your expectations. If you do not accept what is, you will suffer. You had a fight with your loved one. That's how it is. Do you feel sorry? That's how it is. Do you want to ask for forgiveness? That's how it is. Follow your heart. But no, instead you sit and think, damn, why did I do that? I should have acted differently. I shouldn't have brought up that topic at all. Damn, I'm making the same mistakes again. How long will this go on? I'll go to therapy and figure out why I keep making the same mistakes. You come to therapy and start building theories about why you keep making the same mistakes. It doesn't matter at all. This is mental masturbation that won't make you happy. On the contrary, it will only deepen your suffering. That's not what psychotherapy is for. Psychotherapy helps people to be alive where they are. And this is also a bit of a deception. Because in reality, it is actually my way of showing people who they truly are, deep down. It's almost as if I bring presence into real life only so that after some time has passed as once happened in my own life, I can then discover that so-called real life actually unfolds within presence itself in a way that is both surprising and profound. And it has never been any other way. And it will never be any different. There has never been a there and then. There has only ever been here and now. But in order for people to grasp this, we use a little trick. Start being present in your pain. Tell me about your pain, I say to my client. You're talking about shame right now. I see that you're avoiding my gaze. Can you look at me? Stay. I know how hard this is. Please tell me about your shame, but tell it directly to me and stay alive in this moment. Try to speak personally about yourself, directly to me, and notice what is happening to you. The person starts to speak and notices that in the process, many things begin to change. For the first time in their shame, they don't want to hide. Before, when he felt shame, his head would sink into his shoulders would rise, his eyes would drop, and he wanted to shrink into a dot and just disappear into the ground. Because of this, a wild center of tension would form, which manifests as heart palpitations, sweating, and flushing. and the person sees that others see him blushing. He stutters, his vocal cords spasm, and he can't breathe. Try to take a deep breath. You won't be able to. And only when I take the drama out of this shame, yes, shame is a normal feeling. You don't need to fight it, you don't. Stay alive, no matter what happens. Tell me about it. And the person begins to breathe. He starts to gradually place who he truly is into what he has never been. And over time, he begins to see that in reality, there is nothing but presence, while the shame inside him was unfolding. He simply wrapped his shame in a concept, and it became like a kidney stone, some kind of phosphatic or even worse, oxalate stone. A kidney stone that cannot be dissolved. It was sitting there all the time. And only at the moment when we started taking the right herbs, when we brought presence into contact, in the shame there was a huge amount of excitement discovered, locked away there like in a prison. That is the volume of excitement. That's how you rob yourself, deprive yourself of yourself. And a person starts to come alive. That's why the more you struggle in your life, the worse it is for you. At some point, you'll have no choice but to accept what is. Do you remember these lines? In one of the last episodes of Christ's life, let your will be done, not mine. And for him, this was also a challenge. Even for Christ, it was a challenge. If you remember, in the Garden of Gethsemane, he sat and turned to the Father several times, saying, Father, I can't even put into words how much I don't want all this suffering. I know what they're planning to do to me. Let this cup pass from me. The Father is silent. Christ asks a second time, maybe you have some plans for me? Tell me about them. But, if I have a chance to escape, I would gladly take it. And only the third time does Christ say, Father, I understand. Let it be as it will be. I am ready to accept my life as it is. And the strength that was revealed at that moment was enough, so that a very short time later, at the height of his suffering, he could say, Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And this was natural. I am saying this now, not as a sermon, not from the perspective of preaching, but for the sake of your own lives. There are simple things in your life, everyday things, your interactions with loved ones, your work, your feelings, your body, your health. Live where you are. Don't try to constantly correct your mistakes. You cannot redo anything in your life. I could have acted differently. No, you couldn't have. I could have thought differently. I could have controlled my thoughts. They couldn't. The only thing you can do is not be so merged with and identified with your feelings. Not to think that they are you. They are like a radio that works for you, helping you perform a pragmatic function serving a pragmatic purpose in your life. Brushing your teeth in the morning each day, carefully solving math problems, thoughtfully writing code, doing marketing, loving your children, solving crosswords, getting home by the most logistically efficient route. That's what your thoughts are for. And your feelings are also there to show you what is happening in your life right now as feedback. It's like when we're driving a car and we turn the steering wheel to the right. Bang! A pole or a tree, the shoulder of the road. We turn the wheel to the left, bang, the median strip turn to the right again. That's how we drive along. That's the function they serve. This is called negative feedback in cybernetics. I think feelings perform this role for us. They show us the way, like a compass helping us navigate. That's it. They're like a toothpick you use to pick out a piece of food stuck between your teeth, and then you throw it away. You're not going to keep the toothpick, are you? It helped me get that piece of meat out, which I could then eat. And you don't put it under glass, collecting all your toothpicks and praying to them every morning, praying to the toothpicks that helped you do this good deed. Of course not, right? That's not how it works. It's the same with feelings and thoughts. So allow yourself simply to live. Your life will always be changing. Sometimes you'll be healthy, sometimes sick, sometimes you'll be joyful, sometimes sad, sometimes you'll feel anger, sometimes joy, sometimes hatred, sometimes love. Everything will be present in your life. The main thing is to notice that all your feelings are not you, and you are something greater that allows them to happen. And once you realize this, your life will begin to change. and you'll discover that your life, your enjoyment of life, your vital pleasure in living in a sense, your bliss does not depend on the events of your life, but only on how much you are in harmony with your own nature, the nature of presence. Because, after all, within you lives the one we call the boss. He is inside you. When we pray to God, we look up to the heavens or try to gaze into an icon. In reality, we are actually looking into ourselves. Do you understand? You cannot see God. You can only give him the opportunity to discover you. This is the path. Remember, like in Bee Gees Dubrovsky, in the old hit from 1997, don't hide your eyes from God, or else how will he find us? All you need to do is open your eyes and your heart, and everything will happen on its own. Stop resisting your life, and then you will see that your life is beautiful just as it is. You will see it in all its colors. You will stop tormenting yourself with conditions, expectations, desires to change your life, fighting for dignity, for rights. You will stop fighting with other people. You will stop trying to destroy them, to put them in their place. Because other people are just a reflection of your own delusions. There is no one else but you. No one. When you find peace in your soul, I assure you the following will happen. The world will become more beautiful. People will be more decent. Those around you will be kinder, brighter. There is no longer a strictly polarized world. If your life today is torn apart by constant conflicts, if there is good and evil, light and darkness, good people and bad, if there is always someone to fight, someone to hate, you have a problem. You are fighting with yourself. In this way, you are poisoning yourself with the venom of hatred. There is no one you need to defeat. According to the latest data from our intelligence, we were fighting with ourselves. If you watched and listened to this video with your heart, then something has appeared inside it. Write down what it is. I love you, my dear ones, and I appreciate you. See you in new videos. If you want to join one of our programs, don't hold yourself back. I'll leave links in the description to this video, with links to all our programs where you can either become a great therapist or simply a happy person. Both are possible. Thank you very much.